The curse of Adam, we're all fragile. Like glass. Delicate little bits of glass. Beautiful little bits of glass. And somewhere along the line, we get broken. Everyone does. It has to happen. How could it not happen? When you're so beautiful, and delicate, and fragile? How can you hope to never break? It's just part of life. At least, that's what they tell me, but it doesn't start off that way. We aren't born broken. No. Just to be broken, and they call it the curse of Adam. Who quickly pointed his finger at the woman, as if he forgot the name of the one who he'd longed for in that single moment when the guilt had to be shifted, and the mother of all pointed at the serpent, as if she prayed that the one who had seen her fall would simply crush the head of her enemy and she would once again be blameless. That single bite, that taste of rebellion, cut a tether to the divine that was meant to maintain a world of perfection, but they had become Pandora. Unleashing a wave that rippled across the galaxy, and echoed back across the eons. Its frequency peaking, its amplitude mounting, till there was only one possible outcome, and when that wave reached the generations of glass, its vibrations had exceeded the threshold, and like the froth of the ocean when it slams against the shoreline, the glass people shattered, their foundations were shaken. Because, for the first time in their perfect lives, they looked into the face of their ultimate authority and answered. I was afraid, and perfection was taken. And they were driven out with nothing but blood on their hands, and fear in their arms. It's the fear that has been our inheritance. The fear that is nestled with us from the womb, so that when we take that first breath of imperfect air, we cry. But we don't share that with each other. You're supposed to feel the fear all by yourself, I guess. It's another one of those unspoken rules that we eventually learn. It goes right along with saying bless when someone sneezes. Or sleeping on the sofa when you have a guest because you offer them your bed, or saying thank you when your grandma sends you an awful birthday present. You keep your fear to yourself. No one has to tell you. You just understand, but that doesn't feel right. It shouldn't be part of those rules. Yet, somehow, it's one of the first rules we learn. I think we learn it somewhere between listening to the don't cries and the you'll be okays. Somewhere around the be strongs. You get the message. People know the pain is there. People just don't want to be so aware of it, but we are still aware. Even though we don't want to be, so we build up walls and hedges and bars around our beautiful little glass hearts, and they sit there in their fortresses, and hiding places, and cages. Safe. Protected. Alone, and will never feel the slow bleed of betrayal, because the knives cannot pierce the walls, or hedges, or bars. And we'll never feel the fractures of loss creep across our delicate surfaces. Because no one is there to first hold us close, and then watch us fall. And we'll never feel the tears paint humanity on our faces as they fall from eyes that fight their every desire to burst forth, because we won't cry over anyone. Anything, or if we do, no one sees. So did it really happen, and we look out at the unfettered and uncaged hearts that recklessly place themselves in arms and hands that will ultimately grow fickle or frail, and they will slip from these same arms and hands, or be crushed in their desperate grasps. And we try to hold on to our scorn, and think how could they be so foolish? All the while, their hearts pulse with the warmth of touch and feeling, all the while we stay perfectly protected and cold, and we shake our heads when they break and shatter, and we watch their splintered shards glittering in the light. And sometimes they just lay there, and sometimes they pull themselves back together, though the pieces are never as flush and smooth as before. Because you can't sand the edges of their brokenness with promises. And we wait, because perhaps now they have learned, and perhaps now they will join us in our safe isolation, and some retreat into that solace, and wait for something or someone who can slide through their barriers like a spirit through the ether, because these walls can't be wrecked, they have to be penetrated, and somewhere their jagged edges like a badge or a warning, knowing they can make you bleed if you reach too soon or hold them too close. And some crave the warmth of the hands whose fingers they slip through, and the embrace of the arms where their dreams are crushed, so they wait in the sun for the touch or the embrace that will make all the cracks and fractures they gathered each time they shattered, worth it, and we listen to the sidewalk prophets who raise their signs painted on dumpster cardboard, as they sing to drums tightened.
A search for truth, certainly, the alarming worldwide statistics which threaten our survival can be attributed to much other than one common cause. However, with approximately 8 billion people living on planet Earth, it is beyond alarming how our clear view of reality has been and continues to be obstructed by things like our very own developed technology, as well as false teachings, dogmas. Minimal effort and research are required to become aware of the increasing amount of frightening information easily made available to us in this day and age. We have become victims of the same technological advancements which catapulted mankind out of the 19th century and well into the 21st. I see world leaders herding humanity into the most advanced civilization mankind has ever known based on the same false dogmas from savage ages. These dogmas have held the tightest grasp on the minds and activities of humanity throughout history, and we continue to witness this at the present time. Life was as happy and as comfortable as it was going to get under the circumstances, and I was well aware of it. I was paroled from prison 5 years earlier and immediately applied myself in the HVAC industry. Over a decade behind bars turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened, and I made sure of it. Having gone in there as a kid and flying home to LA as a grown man, I often found myself thinking back to many moments, experiences, friends I left behind, and lessons I learned along the way. I had turned my job into a career, was engaged to be married to a remarkable human being, and was expecting to be a father for the first time. Freedom never turned out what I expected all those years. Nonetheless, by late 2009, I was a proud father of 2 precious little girls and looking forward to the future. The rest is history. The following year my entire life came to an end when I was arrested at work by ICE agents and eventually deported from the United States to my native country of Mexico. I was a Christian man in a horrific situation, yet holding on to my faith as best as I could, and when I found myself putting up some lights at my friend's church in Tijuana, I made the decision. The thought came to me as I reached up towards the ceiling while maintaining my balance on the ladder and tightened the screws with my drill. I had no real sense of direction. So, what if I started my own church? Why not? I knew I had more to learn, but what better way to do so than to teach? I could use my life occurrences and experience to motivate people and get them to see the light. It didn't take much to come to a conclusion. René Descartes, Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato. These men and many others have had in some way or another a direct or indirect connection with many people's faith throughout the world. Admittingly so, much of what I began coming across was beyond startling. I found myself sad, enraged, and many nights cried myself to sleep knowing that it was the beginning of the end for my family and myself. I knew my marriage would soon come to an end, even more so with everything my wife, at the time, was already dealing with. There were mornings when I didn't want to open my eyes. I felt I had no reason to live. Having been raised Catholic, I was a believer for most of my life. Needless to say, that all changed. My personal inquisition over the past 11 years has led me to a world of true. Today, my life's biggest desire is to fully share all that I have learned in the past decade and feed our children what is imperative they know about the world we live in and the harsh realities behind it. With so much information at our disposal, it's beyond absurd to have humanity still headed like sheep. Churches have become comfortable community gossip centers for people to go to, feel like they belong.